We are back at it. Welcome back to another edition of the Pistols Firing Podcast. I'm Carson Cunningham, joined as always by Colby Powell. Colby, the football season is rapidly approaching, so we're taping this podcast, and we are also on video. So we'll put this up on YouTube for our Gen Zers who love YouTube so much. But good to be with you, and man, we're getting really close now.
Yeah, we are. I'm really excited for Thursday. All along I've kind of been planning on just watching the opener from home, and the closer we get, I'm like I texted my wife this morning. I'm like, "You okay staying home with the little one next week?" And I'll run up to Stillwater on Thursday night. I've got to see these quarterbacks in person. I mean, we're 6 days away, Carson, from having every answer to every question we've had all off season. Maybe not so much. I don't think we get that many answers, but I'm excited for any answers we might get on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I think just seeing who's out there. We've heard a lot of names. We've heard a lot about the quarterbacks. Just seeing the actual on-field product will go a long way to determining just who can ball and who can't, and how good is this team going to be. Um, and I will say, like, I think optimism was growing amongst this podcast the last time we spoke. I think it's not based in pure fandom. I think the more I've heard about the personnel, which we'll go over on some of our Twitter questions, we did take Twitter questions. We'll answer those at the end of the show. We also have two new sponsors joining the show, in addition to Chris's, who we'll get to in here in a second. But I think when you just holistically look at everything, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, primarily because of all the unprecedented turnover. When you go and everyone just keeps harping on the 3-9, 3-9, 3-9 nationally, and rightfully so. They were terrible last year. But I don't think you could ask for a better run out in terms of remaking your program, remaking your team to correct a 3-9. That goes to coaching staff first and foremost, and then you go into the NIL and all the players and stuff like that. So I am cautiously optimistic, but I am not pessimistic at this point, and I didn't really see that coming before we got to the open transfers and NIL and all the coaching changes. So as it stands on August 22nd, man, I'm getting a little bullish on OSU. I really am.
I would say I'm on the optimistic side of neutral. Like I'm leaving the door open for all outcomes because in modern day college football, I think if you're just locked into a take, like this is absolutely what this team is going to be this year. Maybe if you're hosting an Ohio State podcast, maybe if you're hosting a Texas podcast, you have some idea of exactly what the product is going to be. But I'd say for most of the rest of us, the extreme majority of college football, the turnover is so extreme from year to year. I think you just have to leave the door open to a lot of possibilities. And I mean, do I think it goes 3-9 again? No, I think that was an absolute disaster. Your quarterback got the yips. You had two other quarterbacks get hurt. You had the worst OC and DC of the modern era of my lifetime, probably at the same time. It all went bad. But I don't think that we can just say, well, they were bad last year, so they're going to be bad this year. I think that would be overlooking a ton of information. We went through the schedule a couple of weeks ago. You had them 8-4, Adam 7-5. We'll do it again after the non-conference whenever we have a little bit better idea of how competitive everybody's going to be. But I don't know. I don't see any reason why they couldn't be in the upper third of this conference. And I think it's entirely possible they could be in the bottom third of this conference. I think that the range of outcomes for this team is very wide, but I am on the optimistic side of neutral because I do think that this is a quarterback situation. Unlike a couple of years ago when you had Rangel, Gundy, and Bowman, I think all three of those guys went into the season as the starter because nobody was good enough to really grab that job. I think Zane and Haas are both going into the season as kind of co-starters, if you will. We don't have a starter named yet. I think they're both going into the season as co-starters because they're both very good and the stakes are really high to pick the right one. So you probably need to see them with the lights on since neither of them have ever thrown a forward pass at this level. So, yeah, I'm not willing to just say, like a lot of people are nationally, they were bad last year, they're going to be bad this year. I'm also not willing to pick them to win 10 games. I'm falling somewhere in the middle and leaving my mind open to anything on the extremes.
Yeah, we got a really good Twitter question. I'll go more in depth. One of the Twitter questions was, give me 3 reasons to be excited about this season, and I'll go more in depth there. But just holistically, the big takeaways I've gleaned from people I've spoken to is they're just bigger, faster, stronger on defense. That's one thing you can say about Mike Gundy's tenure is they've had some really good defenses, of course. Obviously, the Jim Knowles year in 2021, but throughout the 20 years of Mike Gundy's football, I don't think you could pinpoint his defense as being big, strong, or athletic. More heady, more smart. Those are kind of the traits I would give, and I think that's changed dramatically with the additions they've made in the NIL and the coaching staff they've made. So that's one reason I think to get really excited. And I'll go more in depth on Todd Grantham's defense and Doug Meacham's offense. I've dove into that a little bit. And boy, Colby, it speaks to our hearts. So we'll get into all that with that Twitter question and much more. We have some Mike Gundy related news to get to, but first, let's hear from Chris's University Spirit, your one-stop Cowboy shop. Be sure to shop at chrisuniversityspirit.com. Pick you up an Oklahoma State hat like this guy right here, or maybe not this particular one, but all your Oklahoma State needs will be met at Chris's when you go to the game for opening weekend or opening week, I guess, being a weeknight. Be sure to stop by Chris's. They'll hook you up with virtually anything Oklahoma State you can think of. We appreciate them sponsoring the podcast as always. They've been with us a very long time. They're an institution in Stillwater, and they're an institution here with Pistols Firing and the Pistols Firing podcast. So we appreciate them being with us again this football season. We will also be doing our, as I mentioned last show, the pregame show and the postgame show. So twice a week, we'll get into everything Oklahoma State football related. And with that said, Colby, we had some Mike Gundy news to get to. You sent me Mike Gundy has the 8th best odds to be fired. What can you give me kind of an outlook on who was above him and just your thinking on that?
Yeah, so this is Bet Online who gave these lines, and this is projecting who will be fired first this season. So this isn't even just who's on the hot seat. This is who will be fired first. Arizona's Brent Brennan is at the top of the list. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Cincinnati coach Scott Satterfield is 6th on this list. And then coming in at 8th on this list is Mike Gundy. Says here Gundy is one of the longest tenured coaches in college football and a fixture in Stillwater. But after a disappointing season and a difficult 2025 schedule, odds makers believe he could be under scrutiny if things unravel early. Carson, you and I went over the schedule. It gets much more difficult, I think, in the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. The only really tough game opening the year is at Oregon, which we're presuming is a loss. That would be a monumental, just legendary win if they went to Eugene and won. But yeah, Mike Gundy, top 10 odds in the country to be the first coach fired. And I think that's a lot of playing the result of last year, but I get it. People nationally aren't in tune to this stuff every day. I think people nationally have much less of an understanding of what the Mike Gundy experience is. So I get it when Bet Online looks at what happens last year and throws Mike Gundy out in the top 10 of guys that could get the boot.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense because when people think of Mike Gundy nationally, they remember just how hostile that contract situation became, how public it became. That coming off a 3-9, no matter how long tenured you are, if people think you're cross with your bosses, that certainly moves you up the rankings. But it is interesting, like how open and I know people get tired of me bringing up OU, but to me, it's always a good comparison just being in state and just where those programs are currently. It's like an open topic, and like it's pretty much known amongst Brent Venables that he's coaching for his job this year. With Gundy, I think it's far less certain. Like it's pretty certain that if Brent Venables doesn't win this year, he's going to get fired. That's just how it's going to be. And that makes sense. I mean, Mike Gundy, as you mentioned, has been there 20 years, his 21st year. Brent Venables has been largely a failure as a head coach. Two very different tenures. I don't mean to do a direct comparison. But you could argue that Mike is coaching for his job this year with how contentious that was. Oklahoma State cannot afford to go 3-9 again as a athletic department and as a university. And I don't know, his buyout went down. So there's certain arguments to be made on both sides. Where I land on it, I think if they miss a bowl game, I could see that decision being taken out of Mike's hands. So I guess I'm trying to say, all that said, is I do think he's coaching for his job, but I do think that with how much change he's been willing to make, that buys him some good grace with Chad Weiberg and the powers that be, the border regions. Because if he had just dug his heels in, Colby, and gotten rid of 2 assistants and kept coordinators, or just kind of reshuffled the chairs on the Titanic a little bit, then I would be far more bullish on his odds being higher. But I do think he's had a tremendous offseason. To me, Colby, they've had an A plus offseason. The unprecedented change with the coaching staff, bringing in the talent they have on the defensive side of the football and offensive too. That shows me Mike is willing to make this work and willing to change. I think that's the number one thing that Chad Weiberg wanted to see. Is Mike willing to change and adapt and make crucial changes for the betterment of the program? And he's done that. They've had a plus off season, all things considered.
Yeah, and like you said, I don't think it's cut and dry. I don't think there's an exact number. Like Mike Gundy has to win 7 games or he's fired. He has to win 6 games or he's fired. I think he could even possibly win 5 games, miss a bowl, and still come back, depending on the context of how that plays out. Right? I mean, you've got almost a scheduled loss going to Oregon. So in your other 11 games, can you go 6-5 in those to get to a bowl? Can you go 7-4, 8-3 in those other games? Your other 11 games? I don't know, but I don't think there's a set number that he has to reach in order to continue to be the coach at Oklahoma State. I know he didn't want to go out the way last season ended. That was, from what I've read, from what I've heard, that was important to him to not go out on that note, as much as Mike Gundy says, yeah, when they're done with me, they can just toss me out to pasture. I do think his legacy at Oklahoma State matters to him, and I think it should. He's devoted more than half of his life to the university, to Oklahoma State University. So, yeah, I think that he will be back beyond this year, but that's because I'm optimistic about this season. And I just think with what you're doing in recruiting, I mean, they're recruiting at a level beyond what they've ever done in Gundy's tenure. They're recruiting the state of Oklahoma incredibly well. You've got, I was going to use the phrase adults in the room. That's the wrong phrase. You've got coordinators who have real solid experience at this level, who have real levels of success at this level, who I think that you can count on going into the season. So I think that the arrow is pointing up with everything that they've done in the last 6 months. But the reality is everything that they've done in the last 6 months will be less important than what happens over the next 3 months. So that's winning the offseason isn't what we're here for. We're here to win, August 28th through the end of November. That's what you're here to win. So, yeah, I don't think that they can go 3-9 and 0-9 in conference again and him be back, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I'd be really surprised if he's not still the coach in 2026.
Yeah, I would be too. Certainly. And I just think, like we mentioned with the schedule, I cannot see barring injuries at quarterback, I cannot see the bottom falling out the way it did last year. I just can't. So Mike did make some headlines. He confirmed reports that safeties Zaquan Patterson was no longer with the team. Gundy said, quote, as of now, yes, it is not 1%, 100%. As of now, he is not practicing with us. So it sounds like there was some sort of issue at practice, him not doing things the right way, and just kind of one of those typical, disciplinary things where he's kind of left it up to the player to decide if he wants to get his head screwed on straight and be a member of this team. I mean, the guy's talented. He was the number 63 overall player in the country in just 2024. So had offers. Came from Miami, but he had offers from Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, LSU, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas. Like that's what I mean. Like these defensive transfers they've gotten have had some impressive offer sheets, but to me, Colby, I'm just speculating here. I don't have any inside information, but a guy with that sort of pedigree coming from Miami probably thought he would just walk into a starting position, and he's finding out real quick you got to do things the right way under Mike Gundy.
Yeah, and Mike Gundy in 3 sentences, he used the phrase "as of now" twice. So that to me, it really throws up a big time flag of okay, he has to decide. I think that's what this quote from Mike Gundy is telling me. As of now, yes, it is not 100%. As of now, he is not practicing with us. To me, that reads, if I'm going to get inside Gundy's brain and paraphrase, that reads, Zaquan Patterson has to decide whether he wants to be a part of this football team. We've told him to go figure it out. When he figures it out, he'll let us know. We'll move forward either way. That's how that quote reads to me. Because I mean, just as of now, as of now, as of now. Well, as of now, we're 6 days out from the start of the season. As of now, we're 8 days out. No, not 8 days out. Would I put another 7 on that? We're 15 days out from a trip to Eugene. Like, you need to know pretty soon. But yeah, that's what it reads like to me. He was dismissed. He's off deciding whether he wants to be a collegiate football player. He's off deciding whether this is the life for him. So yeah, that to me just very feels like Mike Gundy just putting the onus on the player. He's got to decide.
Yeah, and I think he had slipped down the depth chart a little bit too. I don't know if that's just a result of the off-field stuff or the lack of focus stuff, or if that's just a sign that OSU's pretty good in the secondary, which I do think they're really strong at corner. That's something I've continued to hear throughout camp. And so, yeah, I think it also speaks to Todd Grantham, and that, like, I just keep hearing that the defensive staff is like so intense and aggressive and up your you know what if you're not doing things the right way. So that's good to hear. So I hopefully he can work his way back. As I mentioned, he's a talented player. He has to decide. This is his livelihood. It's NIL. He could go try to transfer somewhere else if he chooses, but as you mentioned, the season's here, so it's time to put up or shut up. And I think he's been clearly given that opportunity with all those as of now, as you mentioned. The Pistols Firing Podcast, we're going to get into some more stuff here, but the Pistols Firing Podcast is brought to you by Brewer Consulting Group. Welcome to the show, Brewer Consulting Group. Colby, do any of these sound familiar to you or any company you know? One, our processes are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Our data reporting takes forever and isn't accurate. We hear all about the hype about AI, but have no clue what it actually means for our business. Or our projects always run over time and over budget. If so, if that's your company, if you're out there listening, talk with our friends at Brewer Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data reporting, and technology that actually works for you. Their team of 6 Sigma Black belts, PMP certified project managers, and seasoned data engineers have delivered solutions that are built to last for local clients like the Tulsa International Airport and Medify. They've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, they're founded and ran by a proud OSU alum and season ticket holder. Attaboy, got to get that season ticket money in for the university. Learn more about them at brewerconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them as a Brewer Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. So great company with us. We're glad that they're joining the show. Colby, are you familiar with AI? I'm getting pretty good at it. I've started to use it in my daily life. Are you pretty up to speed on AI and things like that?
I wouldn't say I've used it in my daily life. I've used it occasionally. I'll pop on, I'll ask it a question, I'll get it to make a list for me, help me think through something, stuff like that. So I use it sparingly as opposed to daily, but it's a useful tool sometimes.
Very useful. I'm kind of worried about it, how much I put it in there and like let it think for me. Like we call in our household, we call Chat GPT Chad. Hey, have you asked Chad how to do that? Have you asked Chad about this? Have you asked Chad about that? Chad's like a member of our family now, so maybe I need to rely on it a little less. But it's helped me with just like you mentioned, those menial tasks. But if you own a business, be sure to check out Brewer Consulting.
At some point, AI will just be doing this podcast. We'll just
Probably
get our voices. We can type in kind of some bullet points. We can basically type in our rundown for the pod and give it our voices and click formulate, and it'll just make the pod for us and spit it out.
Did you see what the NCAA did with Michigan?
It's just, I mean, what are we doing at this point? Why are we surprised? Should we even care? We all knew in the middle of their national championship season that they cheated in the most blaringly obvious way that you could possibly do it, and they still got to go on and win the Natty. Harbaugh still got to go be an NFL coach. Like, it's just nonsensical. It's goofy. And then Moore gets suspended for one game at the start of next season. It's all very goofy. I don't think the money is going to matter to Michigan. It's just, yeah, it's what I've come to expect, honestly.
The great irony in this is that Mike Boynton is at the University of Michigan right now after he got completely hosed, completely bent over a barrel by the NCAA. Like, they cited when they put that penalty on Oklahoma State basketball, they cited like multiple years or multiple infractions. They phrased it as if OSU was this school that had messed up and gotten in trouble a bunch of times. Michigan under Harbaugh had already like what? Like, unbelievable. Like, again, NCAA, show me on the doll where OSU hurt you. Show me, because none of this makes sense. None of it. It's a joke, and it speaks to everything you and I have talked about for years, that they slap blue bloods on the wrist and then they punish schools like Oklahoma State. And it's gotten to the point where it's like egregious. like with the Mike Boynton stuff, the tennis coach that just got in trouble, Chris Young, like it's overboard. And I don't understand what it is at this point. There has to be something going on behind the scenes because it's just a complete joke.
It's been egregious for a while, and it's just I don't have when it happens to Oklahoma State. The next time that this happens, and the NCAA brings the hammer down on Oklahoma State for something minor, I'll have the energy and the emotion to get fired up about it. But I can't even do it with every last Michigan case because I just know what the NCAA is going to do. You know what Michigan is as a brand. You know what Michigan is as a football program. You know they won the Natty that season. So the NCAA is not going to come out and tarnish that brand and mess with that money with some crazy penalty. They're just not going to do it. Yeah, so it just kind of is what it is. But this is exactly what I expected. I expected them to take 2 or 3 years and then come out and be like, now, Michigan, that was bad. You better not do that again. And, I mean, they got a couple of recruiting restrictions. They got a big fine. Their coach gets suspended for 1 game next year, in addition to the 2 games he gave himself this year before they play a big game. I said before they play a big game. Is he self-suspended for their game against OU? Also, is that a big game? Is OU? I mean, OU got the his name's Mateer, obviously. I've got a 3-year-old, so we watch her. The only movie she'll watch is Cars. She's scared of everything else. So every time I see the name Mateer pop up, all I can think about is Mater from Cars. And so
Toe Mater.
I've got to fix that in my brain because I've been calling him Mater all summer. And now that I'm going to be speaking about him, I should probably get Mateer down.
I watched Cars recently because I hadn't seen it, and we went to Disneyland and rode the Cars ride, which was actually like it looked like you were in the movie. It was amazing. So that's really funny. I just watched that recently. Yeah, Marshall noted on the chamber again. Sign up for the chamber on pistols firing. Some good stuff on there. Marshall said something that I haven't seen a ton of online discourse about. In OSU's report, the NCAA mentioned that OSU had a history of violations while also noting that most of those were more than 25 years ago. Jim Harbaugh got a 10-year show cause today after getting a 4-year show cause literally last year. Like
25 years ago?
yeah, we're still being punished for Pat Jones and Hartley Dykes, I guess, or whatever.
Wild. Just absolutely wild. Whoever's making decisions in that building. Shame on you for making those decisions.
Well, I mean, shouldn't this signal to every program like, hey, cheat your you know what off, win a national title, and just do your pay your fine and move on down the road.
And no matter what, never cooperate with the investigation. That's what the NCAA wants you to know is that no matter what, you never cooperate.
One thing that is positive is the SEC is finally, after gaining the system for as long as I can remember, of only playing 8 conference games, when the Big 12 played 9 and using that against them, they had more wins. They're finally going to a 9-game conference schedule. And I've seen some discourse, which one, I think it puts the Big 12 on a more level playing field. So that's good. I think every conference should play at least 9. I'm in favor of just playing only conference opponents, doing away with out of conference, but that's neither here nor there. They are required, and they have this screwy system where they've built in like rivalry games every year, blah blah blah. But there is a requirement to play a Power 4 out of conference game, and I've already seen it, Colby. I've already seen the hey Bedlam. You could have Bedlam now. You know you gotta play somebody out of conference. Bedlam. How would you feel about that?
Pound sand, you dorks. I mean, you left us for dead. You left us for dead. This could have just as easily the Big 12 could have been the Pac-12. There was no guarantee the Big 12 becomes this. Shout out to Brett Yormark. There's no guarantee the Big 12 becomes this. You left us for dead to go get your money. So guess what? Go get your money. Go get your money. We don't need that game. We just don't. So, yeah, dorks. All of them. All of them down in Norman. Dorks. We don't want it. Stay away. Go enjoy your 6-6 SEC seasons. Enjoy your coach that you gave $100 million to as soon as you went to the SEC. Enjoy having to fire him 2 years into that contract. Enjoy how great everything's going for you down there in the SEC.
Boy, they're getting a dose of reality, aren't they? Like, look, I certainly think, but here's where the SEC is not, and they've never been this just sheer juggernaut of a conference to where an Oklahoma who's dominating the Big 12 just goes in there and just starts losing to teams that are that they would have been losing to the whole history of their school. That's just not true. Like the SEC dominance came down to one man, Nick Saban, and for a shorter period of time, Urban Meyer. You take those two out, they're just like every other conference. And I know you can't take them out, but it's not as if playing Ole Miss, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas. I can keep going on and on and on. There's a lot of W's on that schedule if Oklahoma State had been playing in that conference for the last 20 years. So the fact that they're now playing 9 conference games is going to shed more light on that. They got to avoid it. Playing 9 when they played 8 gave everyone in the Big 12 before the season even kicks off a worse resume because they were going to have more losses. It's that simple. When you're playing 4 non-conference games, they're playing 1 AA teams in the month of November. So this is a great thing for the sport. It's a great thing for the Big 12 to be on a level playing field. It's a good move. There's been a lot of bad moves going on in college football, mostly bad for the sport, but this is a great one.
Yeah, and my other question for the SEC is like, you have to care about the consumer, right? Like everyone is college football crazy. And then in November, you throw out these duds. I went and Googled Georgia and Alabama. I was just curious who Georgia and Alabama played last November. Saturday, November 23rd. So this is going to be the Saturday before Thanksgiving last year. Big college football weekend, right? You've got Georgia hosting UMass. The week before that, Saturday, November 16th, Alabama. Saturday, November 16th, late in the season. Everything's heating up. Playoff races, conference championships. Alabama hosts Mercer.
I mean, that's a waste of time for everyone.
Do you care about the product? Go to 9. It's time. It's past time. I'm glad they're going to 9. I'm glad that we won't have to just basically have a total dud of a college football week. Because look, the SEC, great football conference. You know, they've had Alabama, they've had Georgia, long time ago, Urban Meyer. 2019, they had LSU, which is the best college football team of all time. The SEC has earned the right to puff out its chest a little bit, but they have still been bums and losers for scheduling Mercer and UMass for this long, that late in the season. Yes, your conference schedule is harder week to week. Yes, it was a huge advantage to have a free win and basically an extra bye week where your starters would play a quarter in the middle or late November. Yes, that was obviously an advantage in your schedule.
Well, and I think this move signals what's really going on in that, ESPN just paid billions for the rights to the SEC, and college football has to increase TV ratings with these TV contracts. And ESPN's sitting there saying, we ain't paying for Mercer. Like, you're playing another conference game. We need a whole nother slate of games. And I think it's going to keep going that way. And that's what I want to see. This is a TV ratings driven sport, just like most sports. But I think this ultimately over a longer period of time, it's not going to happen next year or the year after. But I think ultimately, especially if they condense conferences to just 2, which I think is where it's heading as well with the Big Ten and the SEC, you're going to end up playing 12 like an NFL schedule where you're playing 12 Power 4, quote unquote Power 4 schools as we know them every year, and you go from there. Like no more of these. Like those other divisions can play their own football. Okay, they don't need to bump up and play you. I think that's ultimately where it's going to go. Because if you want to increase ratings, which ESPN does, and all the TV networks, the Big Ten as well, that's what you got to do. And that's what I think. That's what this signals. That's what's moving forward.
Yeah, I think so too. Speaking of Bedlam, Carson, did you see the 2 Bedlam foes at receiver running down the field for the Rams the other day in the preseason?
I saw Brennan Presley's catch for the Rams, which I don't know if I've watched a receiver. Josh Stewart comes to mind, but pound for pound, I don't know if I've seen a receiver of Brennan Presley's size consistently high point a football in traffic the way he's able to. We all remember that touchdown he had where he soared up in the back of the end zone playing at Oklahoma State. Like just a tremendous.
Okay, you're back.
Yeah, you froze up a little bit there, but I kept going. I don't think I've ever seen a receiver at his measurables high point of football the way he does. And that's before you get into all the other things he does great. But I didn't notice the Bedlam connection until you brought it up.
Yeah, Drake Stoops ran over and grabbed the ball from him and handed it to the official. There were only about 10 seconds left in that game, but yeah, I thought that was pretty great that Drake was
Wait,
running.
did Brennan interfere with poor little Drake Stoops? Was there interference on his part? Like,
There
because
was no
we're gonna
interference.
hear OU fans crying about that. I mean, Drake Stoops, he was interfered with.
Yeah, please, everyone, go rewatch that game and then go listen to our. You know what I need to do? I want to rewatch that game and then I want to re-listen to our podcast because I don't know if I've ever done a better like coaching and officiating breakdown than I did after that game.
Oh, it was tremendous. What was like the rule that you brought up, or it would go back to like the yard marker? I can't remember.
The rule I brought up, since we're going down the rabbit hole, was the ball was at the 18-yard line on that play where there was pass interference in the end zone that didn't get called. Ball was on the 18-yard line. So even if the pass interference had been called, like OU fans thought that it was going to be down to the 2-yard line. Ball gets placed at the 2-yard line with pass interference in the end zone. By rule in college football, that happens if the ball is at the 17-yard line or closer. If that happens and pass interference occurs in the end zone, the ball gets placed at the 2. If the ball is outside the 17-yard line, it's half the distance to the goal. So it would have been first and goal OU from the 9. And from that point, likely Caleb Williams would have fumbled and then been destroyed. Or Dylan Gabriel, who was back. Caleb was 2021. That was Dylan Gabriel, who'd already fumbled like 3 times. They weren't getting in. It doesn't matter. We can
Like that is no guarantee whatsoever that they're scoring there. So anyway, did you want to get to our next sponsor before we get to Twitter questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Go turn to Wolf Corporation for your commercial property. They're Oklahoma's trusted commercial real estate listing brokerage since 2010. Their experienced team specializes in showcasing your retail, office, or industrial space to the right buyers and tenants across the state. They are based right here in Oklahoma, delivering results with local expertise. Please visit them at Wolf Corporation. That's WULF, wolfcorporation.com, or call 405-308-3480. That's 405-308-3480 today. Please go support the people who support us. That's how we're able to do this. We put all we can into this, especially in football season. We really lock in. So go support all of our good sponsors because they make it all possible.
Yep, great stuff. Happy to have them with us throughout. So it's going to be a great football season. I'm happy to have these guys aboard. A credit to Marshall Scott for adding more sponsors to the show. It helps us continue to do this show that everyone can tune into weekly, talk all things Oklahoma State football. So without further ado, let's get to some Twitter questions here, Colby. And I'll start. Degen Poke asked, what differences in scheme are you guys expecting from both an offensive and defensive standpoint? And I mentioned I kind of dove into Doug Meacham and Todd Grantham, their style. We know a lot about Grantham, blitzing, all those things. I'll get into that too. But I'm really excited about Doug Meacham's offense. And look, when they hired him, was I disappointed? Yeah. Like I thought it felt like a retread hire. I wanted Oklahoma State to go out and get the top minds out there, the top coordinators out there, because they pay them as such.
Brennan
But
Mary.
that doesn't diminish the level of football coach Doug Meacham is. It doesn't diminish what he's already done as an offensive coordinator. And it certainly doesn't diminish the style of play, because the biggest problem besides offensive line for Oklahoma State, you and I have talked so much about it, there was no identity. There was no semblance. There wasn't even a semblance of a plan. There was no semblance of setting things up to counter with another. And that's primarily what Doug Meacham does. He's an air raid guy, which that should be Oklahoma State's offense from now until the end of time. They're an air raid school. It fits the school to a T. It fits their personnel that they typically are able to recruit. So he's air raid, a lot of tempo, which I always like. And the number one thing I like about it is it's quarterback friendly, with simple RPOs, half field reads to where a quarterback doesn't have to digest the entire full field. That's crucial with 2 young quarterbacks who've never thrown a pass in college. Likes to take deep shots early, test out the coverage. But the number one thing I'm most excited about, besides the quarterback reads and making it easy for them, is zone run scheme, inside outside zone. Oklahoma State hasn't blown off a defensive line off the ball since Joe Wickline. That was nearly 15 years ago. Zone also fits Oklahoma State to a T in terms of their offensive line play. The offensive line is going to be a weakness again this year, Colby. I think that's going to determine a lot who the quarterback's going to be, because if they can't protect, I think you just have to play Haney at that point. It takes him out of there. So he typically goes up tempo if they're rolling, which I like. I don't like going up tempo all the time. And the quarterback friendly reads is a big plus. I mean, they averaged in 2014 with Boykin, who you've mentioned a lot, 46 points per game. That is just off the charts. Now, I don't expect them to do that this year. But some of the weaknesses can get predictable, which I know you don't like. Kind of run, pass, short yardage can be predictable in terms of running, and tends to rely on screens too much when they're behind the chains. But he does a lot of side to side passing as extension of the running game. You and I have been asking for that for 10 years. So a lot of really good things to like about the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, the screen game is really good just to get the ball in your best player's hands more often. I'm all about getting the ball in your best player's hands as often as possible. That was a good breakdown of the offense. I would say for me, offense I think is going to be more logical. I don't think there was a lot of logic to what was happening offensively last year. I thought it just felt very random and very, I don't know, maybe this will work. Throw it up the sideline to Rashad. Maybe that'll work. So I think that's going to be more logical. And then defensively, I would say more aggressive is what we're going to see from the defense. Last year's defense was so passive. It just felt like I don't know if there was too much thinking going on, if guys were just out of position, like they were playing the wrong positions. You know, they had the Kendall Daniels move. That obviously didn't work. But I think this year you're going to see a much more systematic defense, guys knowing their roles, knowing where they're supposed to be, and having the freedom to be physical, to be aggressive. I think we're going to see corners pressing up a lot more, getting physical with receivers at the line of scrimmage, making it harder to get into routes. I think we're going to see more aggressive blitz packages where a lot of times you'll drop two linebackers right down into the A gap and bring them both. Sometimes you'll drop one of those guys out. Sometimes you'll drop them both out. I think you're going to see more corner blitzes. I just think everything about what Grantham is going to do is going to be infinitely more aggressive, physical, and chaotic than what we saw a year ago from Brian Nardo's defense. So, yeah, I'm really excited about what the defense could look like. And specifically for me, Thursday night, I'm going to be watching to see how often Oklahoma State is loading up 7 guys in the box, how often those guys come, how often those guys drop out, and just what that looks like around the line of scrimmage. Because I think Grantham's going to do everything he can to make the opposing quarterback think about how many guys are standing there and which ones of them are going to be coming his direction when the ball snapped.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind is chaos. They're going to create chaos on defense, and that's like the opposite of they created comfort last year. Nardo would have guys completely out of position. I mean, I distinctly remember what was it Kansas or K State, where it
Had
was
to,
like third,
had to have been K-State. That game was abysmal.
where like the quarterback just kind of hung in the pocket, ran around, was like, oh, the field's completely wide up, and I'll just walk into the end zone. Like that's just not going to happen anymore.
Okay. It was the easiest touchdown of Avery Johnson's life. He just hung back there for like 3 seconds and he's like, oh, they vacated an entire side of the field. What an easy walk in touchdown for me. So, yeah, we've got a couple here. Richard Patrick, want to give credit to whoever else asked it. Jacob Ingalls, both asking about a split quarterback system. One specifically asking if it's a Rudolph and Walsh system. And then Richard Patrick is just asking if Mike sees the possibility of using a dual quarterback system. Carson, it's possible. I don't know if I think that both of these guys are really good and they're having a really hard time deciding which one gives them the best chance to win every week of the season. And we've seen it at times in this program and in other programs. When you can't decide, sometimes you just don't. Sometimes you play it by matchup. You know, when I go play golf, I don't hit my driver off every tee box. Sometimes if that club's going to go in the water, I hit an iron off the tee. Maybe one of those guys is the driver and the other one's the iron, and you play matchups. I don't know. I think a dual quarterback system is possible.
I certainly think it's possible, primarily if they're not able to run block. I think having that extra blocker by running the ball with Haney opens themselves up to, and that's remember that's the reason they even went to the Walsh package with Rudolph is they couldn't run the football down near the end zone. The red zone offense was atrocious, and putting Walsh in there opened everything up on, especially on fourth and short. They didn't have to worry about being able to run the football because you have that extra blocker. I think that will be the key, and I do think they're going to struggle some to block again. I think the offensive line is going to be a weakness. Now they certainly could improve and it not be a weakness, and we could see more floors. But I certainly think that's well within the realm, and I would actually probably predict that if they struggle early on in the red zone. From Wampum Mining LLC, should Oklahoma State claim the 2011 national championship? Do you see Auburn claimed a bunch of national titles?
Sure. Yeah, we got totally screwed by the BCS, and we would have beaten that LSU team. Yeah, let's claim it. Put it right up there next to 1945.
It's the same situation Auburn's claiming, other than the fact Auburn was undefeated and they lost out to two undefeated teams to go to the national championship game. But Oklahoma State was a one-loss team, and they were compared to Alabama, who was a one-loss team, who went on to win the national championship in a rematch scenario. And the key difference here is Auburn they beat a fringe I think they beat the ninth overall team in the country that year in their bowl game. Oklahoma State beat Stanford, who was number 4 in the country, would have definitely been in a 4-team playoff. They essentially won a semifinal game in that Fiesta Bowl. That would have been a national title game eliminator. And that's before you even get to the fact that I think they would have beat LSU. But just on the resume alone, they're well within their rights to claim it. I think it's a more legitimate title than the 1945 national title if you really want to get down to it. So
Oh,
yeah, I'd claim it. Why not?
yeah, and I've said, and I say this half jokingly, but only half. The first ever legitimate national title in college football was decided last year when every team who could have possibly won the championship had a chance to play for the championship. Like that had never happened before because the system was always, oh, let's sit around for 3 months and then we'll have a bunch of writers vote and the writers can tell us who the champion is. And then they were like, whoa, 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 BCS, check this out. Top 2 teams, we've got computers. And that was fine, but there were obvious flaws, namely Oklahoma State in 2011. Auburn was a flaw. I don't know if that was in the BCS era or not. And it's just, I don't know, college football championships, they're so subjective throughout all of college football history. I mean, A&M's claiming a bunch. Alabama's claiming a bunch. I'm sure OU's claiming 1 or 2 that could be contested. Like, I don't know. I still am okay with people making fun of Oklahoma State for putting 1945 national champs in the end zone. I've poked fun at Oklahoma State for that. Schools all around the country do it. It's all subjective. Last year was the first year we had a real playoff where all the teams who could possibly win it had a chance to compete. So anything before that, sure, we can all make fun of each other for claiming national championships, but it is what it is. It was a flawed system, and now that we have a better system, we're realizing how flawed it was, and we're like, you know what? We were the best team in the country that year. We're hanging the banner, and that's subjective. So why not?
Totally agree. It's built in reality. It's not built in far-fetched fandom. Like that 2011 team was definitely worthy of winning the national championship. They just weren't given the opportunity, and that to me, given their resume, was wrong. And they certainly had a right to play for it. Outside of this is from Kyle Johnston. Outside of quarterback, who are you most looking forward to watch play this year?
It's a good question.
Uh,
Uh,
for me, for me, it's the running backs primarily. Caleb Hicks coming from Oklahoma, his pedigree, and then the Freddie Brock kid's got a ton of experience. I read he had like, I mean, how many carries he's had an insane amount of carries and hasn't fumbled in his career. Like that will speak to Mike Gundy's heart and any college football coach's heart. Let me pull up his career carries here. He's carried the ball 181 times and has not lost a fumble.
that's a good stat. Yeah, I love it.
So I like that player. Player I continue to hear a lot about. Who did you say?
I was trying to come up with a name off the top of my head, and Carson, you know, I'm a sucker for speed. I'm like Al Davis. If you can run fast, just let me watch you play football and see if we can put it together. I want to watch J.K. Johnson on the outside at corner and see if first of all, I don't even know if he's going to be a starter. The team's all talking about his speed, that he's got just like Olympic track speed. I want to see if he's a guy with the kind of speed and the kind of coverage skills that he can be the next Oklahoma State corner that you can put out on an island. And that gives you a lot of flexibility with what you can do with your other 10 guys if you can trust a corner on the outside who's not going to be able to get burnt, who's going to catch up if he turns the wrong way and a guy cuts in on a post, something like that. So give me J.K. Johnson as a dark horse on the defensive side of the ball. I just love the speed, Carson. I'm here for the speed.
Yeah, sign me up for that. I think I've heard really good things about the corners. I think they're going to be able to let Todd Grantham do Todd Grantham things. Third and Grantham is they're going to be bringing the heat because I think the corners have held up really well so far.
And the thing,
Kairen Duhan is the name to watch out for as well. The defensive lineman. I think he was like I read somewhere he was like he had like the third highest grade on PFF at on the edge rushing the passer and getting after the quarterback. That could be a name that flashes that people are like checking their program. Who's number 33? He's all over the quarterback. That's a guy that has generated a lot of buzz as well. So keep an eye out for him.
good one, listed at 6'1", 265, pretty stout. And defensively, like you said, if the corners can be good, because I'm a little bit worried about the pass rush, just in terms of getting home with 4, because we don't have a lot of proven commodities on that defensive line. But if you don't have to get home with 4 because your corners are holding up, if you're able to send 5 a lot of the time and occasionally a 6th, and when you're feeling crazy, you can send a 7th, if you're able to do that, man, you don't necessarily have to get home with 4 to make it work. If you can send 5 pretty regularly and trust your 6 on the back end, man, that makes a big, big difference. So hopefully the secondary will allow Grantham to do everything he wants to do at the line of scrimmage.
Yep, I think it will. So far, I mean, we'll see. We'll see once they actually start playing some games.
I've got a good one here from Justin Dunn. He asked, with the changes in college football, do you anticipate the CFB atmosphere or pageantry feeling any different? It's a tough one to answer for Oklahoma State specifically because you're coming off the worst season in school history, and a lot of people got really mad at the coach, and there are some people that are still really mad at the coach and need to see some wins before they come off of that. I'm curious to see what it feels like in Stillwater on Thursday, what the atmosphere is like, the pageantry. I still think that college football owns this unique space in the sports landscape where people are so attached to their schools that even though we don't know exactly which 22 guys are running out there on Thursday, we're so attached to the laundry, to the orange, to the black, to the logo. We're so attached to all that. We're so attached to what those game days mean to us, tailgating, Mojo's, everything in Stillwater. I think that over time, if it doesn't get fixed, some of the NIL and portal stuff can wane a little bit of the enthusiasm. But the atmosphere and the pageantry on Saturdays, with Thursdays, Fridays, whatever days the game's being held, I think that's mostly safe for the time being because people, especially in this part of the country, live for college football.
Yeah, I certainly think it's going to have more with like also had a question about like the on-field suites, just what that kind of vibe that will be, and I think it's vibing like the NFL. I mean, that's as far as the in-stadium experience. I think they're going to be trying to generate revenue, like they've already started with the beer sales years ago. I mean, I think kind of the in-game environment will feel more NFL like, but like you mentioned, they're still going to have Bullet running out there. They're still going to have all the pageantry. So I think it'll feel the same holistically, but I just think you're going to see slight differences, especially when fans get frustrated with certain players on their home team. I think the topic will turn to how much are we paying that guy rather than, it's just a kid, on scholarship. I think that's certainly the mood I think will change quicker amongst the fan base in stadium, if that makes sense.
That's fair. And this isn't a Twitter question. This is a Colby question. Would you be pro or anti the, I'll put in quotation marks, salaries of players being released? Because I'm in favor of contracts. I'm in favor of doing something where guys have to stay at schools for multiple years. But the idea of contracts being released and me sitting out there in section 215 and having to listen to somebody three rows back, come on, you're making $710,000. You can't make that tackle. That stuff kind of wears me out sometimes.
Yeah, I think I lean more towards you. You don't really want to open yourself up to that.
Yeah,